everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Apex. In today's episode we're going to be talking about the Belgian Grand Prix. So we're back at Spa this year, this weekend, so lots to talk about, but obviously I will preface and put it out there that we didn't watch a lot of the race. We tried to, but the service in Excel, because we were watching the Formula E, was just absolutely awful half the time. So we did our best.
And also we were in the pit lane during the actual race, so we couldn't. Really couldn't.
We really couldn't. So, but we're still here. We've still watched what we can, and we're going to talk about what happened in the race. So let's get into it. Okay, so starting off we have Red Bull. Let's talk about that first. I mean, 8 consecutive wins for Max.
Yeah.
That's one of the
It's one of the longest runs of wins we've ever seen in Formula 1.
Yeah.
Obviously, next race weekend is Zandvoort. He could equal the record at his home race. It would be unbelievable. Yeah,
it would just be insane. But obviously, it's not surprising that we've seen this, is it?
It's not.
They're just so dominant, and they have been for a while. But
and also, I mean, it's not like he's just scraping by every win. This qualifying was insane from him. 0.8 of a second, the gap to P2. I mean, Checo was 9 tenths behind him in the same car. It was unreal. And obviously, he did have new gearbox, and that doesn't still give you 0.8. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was just. I think that's all I can say, to be honest. Is that, as soon as we knew that Max was going to the lead, everyone stopped watching it. Did you see that?
Everyone stopped watching it.
Well,
and I mean, I think the main, because obviously we were at the XL, I was watching it. It was funny going around the XL while the race was on, because I think 75% of the people there were there with their phones watching the race. But the question wasn't who was in the lead. It was always, has Max gone into the lead yet? And I think he got into the lead lap 18.
Yeah.
I think I predicted lap 6, but I mean, it was still, there was no doubt that he was going to win the race, and obviously he won from a different grid position this weekend as well, which now equals the Fernando Alonso record. But what can you say about Max? It's the same every week.
It is the same. It's just crazy. But obviously we'll go on to Ferrari now. Charles Leclerc on the podium.
Yeah, it was more positive. I mean, they had pace in quali. Charles got on the front row, which obviously meant that he got pole because of Max's grid penalty. But it was a good weekend from him. Yeah, no,
it was just good. I think they had more pace than obviously previous. I think last podcast we were they were not doing.
It wasn't good at all. They had a horrific quali last weekend to actually quite a good quali this weekend for where they should be. Obviously, they are fighting for P2 in the constructors. And against the Astons, the McLarens, the Mercs, they looked like the strongest out of those cars this weekend. Yeah.
Almost fighting for second fastest car at that point in that race. Yeah, definitely.
But obviously, it was unlucky for Sainz.
The incident with obviously Oscar. He had damage. That's just unfortunate. But I don't know. You could say from both sides there, couldn't you?
You could. I mean, I've seen images from the start. From Oscar's perspective, there was so much space. But from Sainz's perspective, he saw a gap, he locked up, and 3 into 2 pretty much doesn't work. No, so it was just unfortunate. But
just a racing incident, I guess, in that respect, isn't it? It's just it is one of those things. But a better weekend for them than last week. So
absolutely.
That's all we can say for that. So we'll go on to Mercedes, obviously.
It was a good weekend for them. Obviously, they're fighting for P2. They got some good points. They got P4 and P6 in the race.
Yeah.
That's
fastest
all they can. Fastest lap as well from Lewis. And that's really all you can say. They had a good weekend.
It was good, but probably not great. Probably not where they wanted to be.
No.
In terms of how they were competing with Ferrari, maybe last weekend, Ferrari being not as good, probably, but I mean, like you said, it was still a good weekend for them and good points for the championship. Yeah,
but I would say that is what we're seeing this weekend. We're seeing the cars are extremely track dependent. You can go from being second fastest car on a weekend to immediately being 4th fastest car without any upgrades. Yeah. And it's what's making this season quite interesting. Absolutely. But at the same time, Mercedes will be annoyed because this isn't what they want.
No, it's not what they want. But then again, I guess we're going to see next weekend. Next race.
We've got a month.
Yeah. With the Formula E done and now Formula 1.
Yeah.
Oh god.
This is nothing for a month.
It's not good.
Not going to be fun.
No, it's not going to be fun. But yeah, obviously nothing really much more to say about Mercedes. Just a good weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to Alpine.
Oh my god.
Obviously, we'll talk about the big news.
I mean, Otmar and Pat Fry have apparently been fired from the team. It's not even just quit. They've been fired immediately with immediate effect.
Yeah.
So Otmar is now gone from the team, so is Pat Fry. I think Pat Fry's going to Williams.
Mm-hmm.
But this is huge news. I mean, everyone's been flooding away from Alpine.
Yeah.
That project is just not working. They've been falling back. They're fighting kind of with the Williams for sixth fastest car now when they had kind of aspirations of closing the gap to the top three. So it's huge news. I don't know what they're going to do. Getting rid of Otmar, in my opinion, was a crazy decision.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to... I mean, we'll see, but I don't know what's going to happen because it just seems like everyone's leaving and they're just going elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's not really a good thing for them in terms of, no one wants to go to a team where everyone's just left.
No. And I mean, personally, I rate Otmar very highly. He goes into teams like with Force India, for instance, with not a lot of budget, turns them into strong P4 contenders, and there was a statement from him saying that, look, he had signed people for 2024, 2025 that now he won't be able to use, and it was a long-term project, it wasn't a short-term project.
Yeah.
And they kind of just abandoned him in that, like, for instance, Ricardo abandoned them in their long-term project. So that team is just not going well.
No,
and
it's not.
Look, who are they going to get? I don't know. Apparently Otmar's already got a contract with a team. He hasn't released that team yet, but apparently he's going to be given the opportunity to change a lot of things, change a lot of personnel. Does that mean, is it Haas? Does that mean, is it Andretti, who are rumoured to be coming in, or High Tech, who are rumoured to be coming in now?
Yeah.
But it's going to be very interesting.
It is. It's going to be really interesting. But we'll talk about the race in terms of, what we saw in the race. I think, I just watched the highlights just now, but I think Ocon's move on Tsunoda, wow, what was that?
God,
I watched that and I was like...
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have big balls to be able to do that.
Absolutely. It was insane. Really good move from him. And then obviously battling the AlphaTauri as well, it's quite a good move to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, that Alpine didn't look the strongest, although Gasly did get P3 in the sprint, which was a shock result, but it was mainly due to strategy, because that race was very strategy based. Do you pit for instance straight away or not? But I mean, that move that Ocon made was it was centimetres between the cars and perfectly executed by both the drivers. Great racing, and that's what we want to see. Exactly,
we want to see that. That's and it's a shame we don't get more of that because obviously you've either got Max in the lead and then just collisions. I mean, it is, again, it's difficult to have racing like that because it's so down to the, like you said, it's like so down to the last, like, I don't know, centimetre that it's just like you never really see it, but it's so good to see. And especially from a car like Alpine with all the news we've heard, it was good to see, and back in the points as well.
Yeah, definitely. They're back in the points, which they haven't had for the last 2 weekends. We forget that Alpine haven't been in the points the last 2 weekends. No. So being in the points is a strong result for them. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to say hopefully they're back on the rise. You as a neutral can, but as a McLaren fan, I'm glad to see them doing badly. Yeah. But look, it will be fun to see them kind of regaining strength to have that battle again in the midfield, which is great to see.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll move on to McLaren now.
It wasn't the greatest weekend. I was talking about the race mainly and also qualifying. Look, Piastri's move, it was a racing incident at the end of the day. There was fault either side, so you've just got to brush those under the carpet. Lando was a weird race. I was getting updates from my parents the whole race, and they kind of said that lap 24 he was stone cold last, lap 34 he was in 7th. Yeah. So it was a strange race for him, but his last stint on softs for 24 laps was unreal.
100%.
But yeah, look, if we go back to the sprint, P2 for Oscar, unreal, led the race, and that's what we want to see. Yeah. People are forgetting that he is a rookie, and he is doing unbelievably well.
Absolutely, I think it was the best decision they ever made. In terms of that.
God, yeah.
So I just think, it was a good weekend. Well,
Yeah, it was somewhat of a good weekend. If we take the points from the sprint and put them into a race,
obviously the race,
it was somewhat of a good weekend. But yeah, and obviously Lando had damage in quali. He went off into the gravel, completely destroyed the floor apparently, which hindered his quali. Still managed to get P7, which he took as kind of like a pole in his mind. But yeah, I think it's a weekend to forget for McLaren. By our new standards.
Well, I was going to say
by our new standards. I mean, at the start of the season, we would have taken this immediately. But by our new standards, we just need to sweep under the carpet, go again in Zandvoort.
Definitely, absolutely. Okay, so we'll move on to Alfa Romeo. Meh.
Yeah, it was another meh weekend. I mean, no points. The cars didn't really look like they had the pace of points at all at any point. And obviously, for once, Joe was outperformed by Bottas, which is interesting to see.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think that's all. I've got nothing to say.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you're watching the race, you forget they are there.
Yeah, it's kind of like Haas and Alfa. You just forget, which
is a shame because
it is a shame, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with the Sauber project because obviously Alfa are out of the sport. Well, out of the sport. Apparently, they're sponsoring Haas next year. But yeah, Sauber coming back, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that project for the next 2 years.
Yep.
But yeah, at the moment, they don't really have much of a base to operate on.
No, absolutely.
Now, so
moving on, this is the in Excel when Sauber's going mad. What did I say? I said, but this is going to be 10 minutes of
10 minutes of me just raving about Teo.
Teo talk. That's what I said.
10 minutes of Teo talk.
10 minutes of Teo talk. Inserting.
It won't be, but yeah, look, I am over the moon for Teo. Obviously, he didn't have the best weekend in Hungary. I kind of somewhat lost hope in his championship run because he had so much momentum going into Hungary. So to see him absolutely thrive at Spa is just... Obviously, he qualified P5. It was quite a bad qualifying. Obviously, it was P5, but Vesti in P2, Martins in P3. He was kind of off the pace, but my God, what a weekend. 2 podiums, 2 P2s, 2 P2s I think, and my God, Vesti crashed before the feature race, which meant that Teo got all the points. He's now leading the championship, his championship bite is now on, and yeah, I'm so excited for the rest of the season. For all the F2 races, I'm going to be a nervous wreck, but yeah, I'm very, very happy, and Abby could tell immediately.
I could tell immediately.
I mean, there were rumours in the queue when we were lining up for the prix that Vesti crashed. I was kind of scanning Twitter to try and find any kind of hints, and then we got the pictures, then we got the official announcement that he was out of the race, and yeah, I was very happy to say the least.
Cannot complain. Yeah, no. It was good seeing the reaction.
Yeah. But yeah, if we move on to our Aston Martin, it was quite a good weekend in comparison to their last couple where they've been really off the pace.
I think so. From their standard that we've been seeing, you know.
From their new standard, this was quite a good weekend. Obviously, Alonso in P5, I think Stroll's in P9. Obviously, they were quite off the pace in qualifying once again, which is what we've kind of been seeing from them. But at the same time, they got good points. They extended their gap to McLaren, which is what I believe their fight is, because Ferrari will overtake them. But yeah, it was a good weekend for them, I'd say.
Yeah, and Stroll in the points as well.
Yes, which doesn't happen often nowadays. So yeah, he had a good weekend, I'd say. Obviously, in quali, he was quite close to Alonso as well. But yeah, obviously, if we compare it to their weekend in Saudi, for instance, or something like that, it was a horrific weekend.
Yeah.
But at the moment, by their standards, it was good.
It seems to be good, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll move on to Haas.
Oh my God, Nico's qualifying.
Oh well, yeah.
I think he set 1 lap in both qualifying sessions. Obviously, in the sprint shootout, he didn't set any laps. He missed the timing line by 4 seconds, and in the first quali, I think he qualified P20 or P18, so it was a horrific qualifying from him. Magnussen obviously had the edge on him because of the fact that he didn't set any laps.
But there's still no pace in that car.
Absolutely not.
No, not even, just nothing. You forget about them because you just look there and you're like, oh well, they're just nowhere on the grid.
Absolutely, and they really did end up with the slowest car that race behind AlphaTauri, behind Williams, and it's just like, what can you say about that team? They were so positive last year, obviously. multiple times getting the points, came back at the pole. We had Bahrain where they were P5, and now they are just back to where they were again in 2021.
It's such a shame.
Yeah, it's such a shame. Hopefully we can kind of see the Nico performances. I wouldn't say the Magnussen because he's not having those performances at the moment, but I hope to see more of those Nico results that we've seen throughout the year, where he's managed to get that car into the points. But yeah, it was a very bad weekend again.
Yeah, no, not good at all. Okay, fine. No, not finally. Oh my gosh, Christ.
Two more.
AlphaTauri. You know, everyone's looking for Danny Rick because obviously Danny Rick is back in the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, I mean, his weekend was screwed up by his time getting deleted in Q1. He had got through to Q2 and then it was deleted again. But yeah, it was a shame. He did have a good sprint though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But at the same time, if we move on to the actual race, Yuki in the points.
Says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because just quickly before we go move on, but like we want to see Danny Rick outperforming Yuki because the whole reason not the whole reason, but majority of the reason why Nick was out of AlphaTauri is because he was being outperformed by Yuki and he was just not showing any performance at all. And you know, we really hope that we can see Danny Rick outperforming Yuki and performing well enough in that car, you know, to justify why he's in that car instead of Nick. Yeah. And weekends like this is really worrying.
Yes, it really is because look, he has been put in that car with the sole purpose to outperform Yuki because that is not his goal to stay in the AlphaTauri. He is there to simply get points to them to get them off of the bottom.
Absolutely.
And at the moment he is not doing that. He did it at Hungary, but this weekend he really was outperformed by Yuki. He was at the back while Yuki was battling for the points and getting points. Yeah. So it shows that the AlphaTauri can get the points and he's not performing at that pace.
Exactly. And it's quite worrying in that respect, you know. But it really is. So finally, we'll move on to Williams. Obviously, you know, we've said with like the Haas, you know, being nowhere, they're obviously not the slowest car, but you know, they had pace.
They somewhat had pace. They were able to battle the cars around them. Yeah. But it's the same story with Williams this season. They always have to undercut the teams and then try and do a final long stint and just hope that their drivers can defend. And in Spa, they just couldn't defend. And then, therefore, they dropped back and, as a result, they didn't get any points. But at the same time, they could battle. And I think Crofty at one point called it a rocket ship in the straights, which it has been. But yeah, I wouldn't call it a bad weekend, but I also wouldn't call it a good weekend.
No, exactly. It's just meh for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? But what can you do? Yeah.
So let's move on to the outro. Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. The Belgian Grand Prix. You know, lots to talk about. Maybe not as much as normal, but still a lot to unpick and things. But yeah, next video that you watch. I'm not gonna say next week. Next video you watch from us will be a Formula E Season 9 recap. Obviously, so it's going to be a bit of a long one, I'm assuming.
Yes,
and probably a bit of a long one of me just talking Sam's ear off.
Pretty much. So it's basically the opposite.
yeah, it's literally the opposite. Because obviously we've finished Season 9 now. I'm not going to say anything more because obviously you're going to wait till that video. But yeah, what an end to the season. So stay tuned for that recap of the entire season. And thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you in the next video.